this is for you, just to give you some information about the research. It just tells you what we're doing. We're doing our research is on organizing in diverse communities. And so I'll be asking you some questions about diversity in your organization and stuff, and how you work with different people.
University of Maryland?
Yeah. I'm a student there. I'm
wait a
studying
minute,
research, so this is kind of...
Do you remember? I guess that's where I met you too.
We were at a rally.
But were you here last week?
No,
When Mr. Burns came from Detroit to speak about ending homelessness?
No, I
He
didn't.
was at University of Maryland.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
He came and I didn't get a book. It was 20 books. And the 20 books they gave us, the thing, I didn't get the books.
No.
But he was so impressed by our conversation, he sent me a book in the mail.
Oh, that's great.
He did.
Nice.
And he's working in Detroit. He was sent here. See, my book is all signed to me.
Uh-huh.
And he was sent here to speak about Denver and homelessness.
Yeah, did you like it?
I love him. Put me in his bag and take me back to Denver with him. He just really touched on
Oh, the door
some
is closed.
points
Yeah.
that we sometimes don't focus on in the city. And he summed it up with, the main thing that we are not doing in the homeless activist community is tapping into our interfaith community, where we should be really looking for solutions with dealing with homelessness and humanity. Like, we should have more power play out of our interfaith community, even more than a political thing. So he said that, I was like, I'm ready to go back to Denver with you. Pack me up.
Is that something that you've done here at all?
We have, well, I am a part of the Ministry Conference, so the good part about that is they are working on rebuilding a lot of initiatives to collaborate and have partnerships, even with some city initiatives to work with homelessness. But here, the Real Care Providers, we are a self-developing organization that basically, operates on a day-to-day basis,
Okay.
doing what it is that we need to do to address street homelessness.
Right.
I specialize in street homelessness because I don't believe people should live in tents and under bridges.
Right.
So basically, what you said made a lot of sense, because introducing the interfaith community to utilizing some of their resources, whether relationships, whether space, because sometimes an emergency is an emergency. Open up the doors of the church can be open. So yeah, I was feeling him on that part.
Yeah.
I don't know how much acceptance I'm gonna get out of it, but he was definitely saying the right things.
Yeah.
Like where we can be very effective at.
Yeah. So how long has Real Care Providers been around?
Well, we started Real Care Providers, our original story started March the 7th, 2013, when we started housing homeless individuals. You ever heard of the encampment I-83 under the bridge right there in front of the jailhouse?
Oh, not specifically.
Well, it was 13 individuals living there for numerous of the years.
Okay.
And basically, I was a Harford County resident coming into the city, identifying what it was that I saw. And it was basically, I saw the negligence, I saw the trauma, I saw the issues that was facing our homeless community. Where they got to the point where all else failed, they went and lived under a bridge, or they went and lived in a tent.
Yeah.
Because all else failed, they tried to meet as many stipulations as the city put out there, and sometimes they continue to hit a brick wall, and they get to that point where they go and reside under a bridge. So I say March the 7th, 2013 was the day we originally started housing street homeless people. And it's 7 years later. And a lot has transpired since then. Because it wasn't as, when you come and see something and it's like, oh, I want to end homelessness. You know, it's like I had that dose of a high. You know, when people say you get your first dose of something. So we actually housed these 12 individuals that was under the bridge. Like,
Okay.
rented 3 houses and housed them.
Okay.
And basically, that was the original step. But then to come back and find out the process that had a lot of them under the bridge, the circumstances that had a lot of them under the bridge, the barriers, the restrictions, the criteria of HUD. It was so many, the lack of affordable housing. It's like a whole window of reasons why we're dealing with homeless individuals.
Yeah.
So it's like here we is 7 years later, probably about 5 encampments later from Guilford, from I-83 to Fall Street. Now experiencing the approach of dealing with encampments, we still don't have no better opportunity to dealing with it. So, so again, it's like, how do you learn to work the process? Because you have a systematic approach to dealing with things. But what we have been able to do at the Real Care Providers is to develop an independent model for housing first. So basically, we possess a 12-unit apartment building, and we have some scattered sites in the city, and we work with these providers, and they house the homeless individuals, some challenging homeless individuals, because some of their challenges is what keep them outside too, whether it's substance abuse, mental illness, non-compliant, whatever, you know, that keeps them outside, or behavioral, barred out of the shelter, not acting right. So it's a lot of things surrounded.
Okay.
So it's like we get the opportunity to do what we doing here, like researching, like what you do. Like we are trying to, you know, when you see something put together, like a 10-year plan to end homelessness. You know, here it is 10 years later, and we're no closer to ending homelessness than when Mayor Dixon put a plan into place. Baltimore City now, we are identified as one of the worst COC, one of the worst continuum of cares agencies that exist. We're like number 4 out of 10. So we're not progressing at all dealing with homelessness. But we are currently, you look at our upcoming budget, we're asking for more money, more money, more money. When you look at the past 3 infractions, we had a $9.5 million mismanagement. We had millions, let's just say millions of mismanaged money in the homeless budget. Now, if I go messing with $9.5 million out of the homeless budget, who you think gonna suffer the most? The homeless people. If you go shaking up, and then they had to get $3.8 million back to the government, that's a lot of money. $3.8 million.
Who had to give
This is the money that they had to give back to HUD when they was going through.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had to return this amount of money back to HUD.
Okay.
So when you start talking numbers like that, that's why we see what we see on the streets.
Right.
Because that's a lot of money to be messing with people, housing, food, sheltering. That's a lot of money.
Right.
I probably could run my program for decades.
So I was going to ask about that first encampment when you have the 12 people. How did you get the housing?
We worked with private landlords, which is basically like today. We were sitting in a meeting yesterday with homeless services, and the thing that amazes you is when you are faced. I tell people sometimes you're privileged to be positioned to face reality, the core and the root of the problem. So I was sitting in a meeting yesterday with homeless services, and it was basically advocating. I had 4 individuals there that was homeless, that been through a couple of programs and it's failing them. They've been through everything. They've been out. So basically, to look at the root and the core of the problem, you're looking at the lack of affordable housing. You're looking at the lack of landlords that are willing to even work with homeless individuals with challenges. So everything that we look at as a private sector of a nonprofit, because we're not funded and we're not grant funded.
Okay.
So basically, I'm able to look at it from that perspective of the reason why we have this problem is because we're not tapping into the fact that Baltimore City has over 40,000 vacant houses. We're not looking at the fact that we do have private landlords that are willing to work with the homeless community. But there's another criteria to just a landlord being a landlord. You got to meet criteria of HUD. You got to meet the criteria of what they want it to be. It doesn't happen because you can have all the passion you want and say, I'm going out and house a homeless person. And it won't happen that way if you're going through that channel that HUD presents for you, because when they're going through that channel, they got to go through access coordination, they have to go through documentation, they have to go through screening of all kinds of things, what's on your record. Then they have to match you with a housing person, someone that's willing, and you know you or I, we could go get an apartment and people they're going to screen you. What's on your background? You know, how much credit you got? So, and a lot of our homeless individuals don't meet those criteria. So, one of the biggest things that we drive forward here is housing first. But the model that we're able to implement and duplicate is because of the fact that we work with private landlords. We work with individuals, developers, landlords that are willing to allow our model to operate within their properties. Now, what the hard part come from that is being able to obtain the type of funding that really can benefit these individuals. But then we're working with it with a team of volunteers. We're approaching it with a team of individuals like you. We're just trying to, sustain these individuals until we can be able to reach out to other components for subsidizing them, which we do. We do have individuals that donate or sponsor a homeless person or give them that 90 days of an emergency stay. And in that 90 days, we got to have case management. We got to have somebody working with them so they can access their entitlements, their benefits. So we all in a developing. The funny part, I've probably done this since 2000, housing. But at this end of it, it's like we're in the developing research stages too. Because it's like we have to create the ways to even work with a lot of the existing agencies, because they have so many barriers to work up against, that where we got this little opportunity to do things different, but we also have the stipulations of funding. We can't really I can't just go clean up all under the Russell Street and everywhere they at. Now I have to manage and balance, even the budget, how many people you can work with. So I'm more conscious of that now.
Did you start this organization, or?
Me and that lady right there. She started it with us. We did. She was my assistant living director for years. So yes, we did. Started it basically off of doing housing for people, assisted living, and then it was like now it's the homeless population. So it's like, where do we go from this angle? It's really a better way to be able to collaborate and partner with the system. Our system is very somewhat intimidating of independent sources. They're more intimidated of working with individuals with developing creative minds that know it doesn't take $53.3 million to manage this homeless situation. But we have to play a part of the system to work with the population. So I'm just excited now that we're able to do what we do and gain some of the recognition of working with some of the different agencies and being able to advocate from that base, like, You know, I just want to see what we can do with housing. Like yesterday, sitting in the mayor's office of Human Services, it takes a lot even to get a person through an application. You're talking about people that's illiterate, can't read, don't stay sober enough to write their whole name, but then you got a stack of paperwork that they got to fill out to even be eligible for a housing list. So that's a big deal. So look, we all three of us was in the room, and it's like, wow, cross this T, dot this I, or put this here. Like, and I just sat there and was thinking, like, suppose they're doing this on their own. Like, where do they get that extra help from, or that one-on-one, like, doing this? So some of the things that they're up against is really, is up to us as advocates to really be able to push some things forward. So that's a part of research. We have developed also a task force. It's a homeless task force. It's a bill that we put through this year that is thriving and passed, and we're just waiting for the final instructions of it. But we put this bill in place because we saw the need of that interaction, that engaging piece. And case management is like 50% of the success stories of people that are even placed in an apartment or rapid rehousing or Section 8. It took that case management component to work with them diligently. Like, you know, it's hard to work with these individuals when they in a tent, they under a bridge. Well, we sent you a letter. Well, how you send me a letter? Well, we sent it to Healthcare to Homeless, you know, and we got to hope you get that piece of mail before the deadline, because when they started purging the Section A and the housing list, you notice when they started purging that, like, come in, get on the computer. You want me to get out of my tent, come and find a computer, and re-register my stuff all over again? So that was a way of purging an over-compelled list. Section A, rapid rehousing, everything that they was calling the individuals to come in and do was more or less the challenging part. Like, I must have got like 30 letters here. Because a lot of the guys, they come in, they use the address, they're homeless, or if they're not doing housing. I got about 30 of those forms here where they was all instructed to come and go and get on the computer and redo your housing application, or redo getting back on the list. So that was the second opportunity for them to purge that Section A list. Like, a lot of people, like, you think you on the list after 10 years, you ain't on that list no more. They done purged that list. If you ain't come back in there last month or last year when they was telling you to come in, you ain't on that list no more. So, you know, again, so your research will definitely be something that we have to process through this city, because it's barriers that are in place. It's things that are in place that hinders more than help allow them to access housing. So that's the part of the research you got to figure out. And your research. And your research. You're going to have to figure out the components to that.
Yeah, we're figuring out a little more, like, how you're able to, have you been able to, like, collaborate with other organizations?
We have been, you know, we have some strong partners. As a network, we have gained some strong partners, not only through other service providers. We have providers that specializes in substance abuse. We have providers that specializes in employment. We partner with Goodwill, you know, some entities that really can work with these individuals. Again, it's about getting them in there and being able to work on it. When they was having the bill about housing, you know, they shut down a housing bill that could have avoided a lot of discrimination within landlords. Like, landlords have a right to discriminate against you for housing if it's something that they feel like don't meet their criteria, whether your income. You got landlords now, they want you to have 2 months of rent. We will bump your little once a month check. That ain't enough to do security deposit and rent. If you get your check today, that's your one check for 30 days. Where's security deposit coming from? They want you to have double. I need you to be to pay double rent.
Yeah.
Cause you got something on your credit. You got evicted before, didn't you? You got put out of college. Anything can come up.
Yeah.
I want you to think about some of the things that even our homeless people face today when they have been through, some of our homeless individuals, they're professionals. They done trauma done hit their life or something personal done made it bad, a bad divorce. I was with a sister the other day, stuff was on her credit, she didn't even realize it was on there. But now she at that place where she's getting matched for housing and you got stuff coming up on your credit that you ain't even know was on there. You know Sue had your name on a BGA bill. What? You got an $1,800? Where this bill at? Bam. That holds up again. So it's like all of these challenges that they face. Every challenge that they face, someone needs to navigate them through that challenge. Whether it's a BGE bill, whether it's a hospital bill, whether it's something that they probably could have got expunged off their record, but it's still on there. So when you're dealing with these homeless people and we're getting them assessed for housing, we need to be mindful that every challenge that they hit may need that person to help them in that area. You can't just take this application and fill it out. It don't work like that. Or we gonna keep repeating a cycle of homelessness and the same individuals experiencing homelessness year after year after year. So it is really important that we tap into that interfaith phase of it, because then we can start developing out of the box solutions. If we're able to put things in place where we can lessen those barriers, and maybe have a little bit of more monitoring, let's supervise the situation. Because 10 years ago you did trash the whole building and tap the house. Let's keep an eye on you this time and make sure. You might need supportive housing. You might not be ready to cook yet because you burned the whole building down 20 years ago. Let's just supervise your cooking skills. You see, little things like that, we take it as, wow, you're right. But when you sitting in front of somebody and you trying to get off the street and you're trying to access this apartment or this place, and they're looking at the fact that when you was in the mental hospital, you were unstable, you were uncompromised, you wasn't playing, you was a drunk, you tore up the place, you got this assault on your record, and today you sitting here looking like this. You probably tore a college dorm up before then. You did. You did.
Extremely dysfunctional.
Yeah. so when you did a dysfunctional act, and then the day you sit here and you want to interview, well, I ain't gonna tell you about that. I had a nephew before. They in South Carolina, they had this thing with pets, so they went in the thing, and some of the hamsters got killed. Right? Do you realize years later? Yes, they took an incident like that, and years later it followed him, because that was like cruelty to animals.
Where did that happen?
South Carolina.
I mean,
yeah, for real.
His personal pets at home.
No, they was in a bed. They was in the school, okay. And they had hamsters and stuff. You know how you did research for real back then. You cut the frog. Yeah. So they went in and let the hamsters out. So some of the hamsters got killed. They plagued team. So basically, he has this thing on his record, cruelty to animals. So all through high school, I'm like, wow, you did this 5 years ago, and we know you was ignorant and a child, and y'all wanted to play and think the hamsters was cute. But here you go, 5 years later, you still got people looking at you like, you can't leave my dog around you. You gonna do something to my animal. We looking at the guy right now in his face. When he jumped in the water and tackled the bird. Did you see the news about that? He jumped in the water. It's something about animal rights. Did you see that? Did you see that, Trina?
I did not see
It's something with animal rights. Him and his buddies was out on this drunken thing. It showed it the other day because he's going to trial now. And he jumped, like in a harbor, he saw one of the ducks, the geese. He jumped in and was like playing, tackling the geese, and had the geese around his neck, and his buddies was laughing. He up for charges right now. That's like something is sacred about that nature of animals.
Yeah.
It's like they sacred. Like you shouldn't have did that.
Huh.
So it's something that he probably felt like a drunken night for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
This is and I use natural things like this with normal people because those are the similar things that a lot of our homeless people that is living in a tent or under the bridge is facing.
Yeah.
Something tedious, stupid. Like what?
Yeah.
Get that off of there.
So what kind of changes do you want to see? What do you want to see happen?
Well, now with our new leadership, what I would like to see is more opportunity for the small nonprofits to really be able to collaborate and work with some of our well-established entities like the Catholic Charities. I think it should be more of a nurturing period through the smaller nonprofits. When we have nonprofits like the Catholic Charity, the United Way, the Our Daily Bread, St. Vincent de Paul, you have these very organizations that have a great reputation when it comes to taking care of the poor, taking care of the needy. But you also have a great budget behind these establishments. So I would like to see more of their budget really coming back into the black communities and working with street homeless people.
Okay.
Because when you riding around and you seeing them sleeping on the bus stop and they sitting up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, we're talking homeless people that haven't even registered at homeless services. We're talking homeless youth that lives in vacant houses because they think it's more chill to be able to just live out. So I would like to see some of the bigger names, the bigger images of places really come back and look into the community and work with, work with these nonprofits that is doing the things like we're doing. Like it ain't a reach out. It should be a point where everything that we're doing here to demonstrate what an independent organization look like, a God-fearing organization, because it starts with me as a minister in training, and my team is going to imitate that type of love and affection. Even when I engage them, when they walk in this door, it's their house. If they want to go downstairs and change, let them change. If they got to cruise in to get out the rain, or let me go use the bathroom as flowers, or go downstairs and get an outfit, they looking for that same type of engagement that I give them on the street.
If somebody can call the office right now, what number can they call?
443-554-1613.
What's the number?
443-554-1613.
You waiting to answer the phone right now? Who are you? And you the outreach coordinator? All right. Thank you.
Maybe an agency that you feel like you don't want to work with. Because some of them get frustrated. They don't want to go back into HCH. I don't want to go back to HCAM. They already toyed me around. I'm mad now.
I'm sorry, what is ACH?
That's healthcare to homeless.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. We have a couple of them around here.
I just want to comment on I'm always thinking of protection. So some of the organizations that you've mentioned, we want to keep those anonymous. Like when you said the people that had to give back the money. Did you say that organization?
Oh, a lot of them had to get back.
Okay.
I ain't named them.
So we want to keep things anonymous, so that
Yeah.
it's not printed.
We ain't anonymous.
Okay. So
We're anonymous.
definitely when we're whatever we are
She got to edit.
publishing with the research, it's all gonna make sure that there's. I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
always
absolutely.
thinking, she knows I'm always thinking lawsuit,
No. So yeah, we'll make sure that that's.
See, this
not-
is a copy
Yeah.
about, this is the task force. You can have that copy.
Oh, okay.
That's the task force that we have developed, and legislation this session. And basically, when you look at the root of the problem, we have homeless people in some of these established shelters for years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I mean, I got a serious issue with that. If you feel like you can't help me in 7 years and I'm still in this shelter, still in the conditions that I'm in, even if it's in my substance abuse way, because shelters, you coming as you are. So that's extends so much more. Because within the community is about demonstrating leadership. And we can demonstrate leadership without the titles. I'm really a sticker on that, because in our political world, it has to be a councilman, a mayor, run for this, run for that. Like a lot of people encourage it. And it's like, in your community, as an activist, you should be able to demonstrate what leadership looks like, from homelessness to homicides, from dealing with our youth. So organizing in the community is really about bringing individuals together. Like, we have to bring from, some of us are like-minded. Like, you have some people that are very passionate about homelessness. You have some people that are very passionate about economics. You have some people that are very politically compassionate. Who we gonna vote for? Who want me to see? Well, one of the strategies that I bring to the community, even as a passionate homeless advocate, is pulling in our gifts and our talents and our strengths to work together. So I have the radio also. And on the radio, I invite a lot of community organizers, whether it's from moms, whether it's from dabs, whether it's from more and more, whether it's from No One Person Goes Hungry. And these are organizations that we work with in the community that may have a like-minded component to work with what we want to do. Basically, we're homeless advocates, but when you're dealing in a city like Baltimore and our communities suffering in poverty, the poor, the needy, the homeless, the lack of employment, we try to bring in a component from every area. You know, whether you're out here, you're representing youth, you want to stop the shooting, stop the killings. Well, let's bring all these ideas together. Let's have conversations about them. Matter of fact, because as you're working with that youth, just think of what could be possibly going home with mom and dad, you know? So basically in the community, we have to realize, like, just like a skeletal body, everything connects to something. You know, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're driven, wherever your energy is at, some of that energy we can connect on a like-minded issue. You know, something that Miss Annie is passionate about, it can connect. If you want to be a business developer, I want to develop this whole block. Well, who you want to live in it? You know, who we going? Is one of those? Is something going to help humanity in that when you?